So despite the fact that it's a school, Strixhaven is a pretty dangerous place. And that's why today's video, we are going to be talking about some of the most deadly friends and foes that exist and like to hang out in the halls of Strixhaven Academy. In particular, we're going to be focusing on a few creatures which, despite having a relatively low challenge rating, can really punch significantly above their weight. So that's why if you're a DM who's going to be running these creatures, whether it's in Curriculum of Chaos or if it's in some other campaign and you're going to be reskinning them, there are a few kind of red flags you need to look out for when you're evaluating monster stat blocks. And in particular, the ones that may seem really low can be quite deceptive at times. So if you have not already seen, I am currently running a giveaway. I will have a link down below in the description so you can go take a look at that, and hopefully you can win some free content from dndbeyond.com. Otherwise, if you're enjoying this type of content and you want to see more of what I have to create, please feel free to like and subscribe to the video. Leave a comment down below letting me know about some of your favorite enemies, some of creatures that you've encountered in your time playing D&D so far. All right, so first up, we're going to kick things off with the Elemental Mascot. At first glance, this one really might not seem like it's that much of a big deal given its relatively low armor class of only 11 and a hit point pool of only 18. But that said, that is certainly made up for to a large degree by having resistance to both cold and fire damage, as well as immunities to poison damage and the poison condition. So individually, if your group is fighting only one of these, it's probably not going to give them that much of a problem, but something to really be aware of as a DM beyond those fairly significant resistances and immunities is the fact that this creature exclusively deals in elemental damage, doing either fire or cold damage depending on whether it's hitting with its melee or range attack. That is going to eat right through your barbarian's rage. And at levels 1 or 2, most characters probably don't really have a significant amount of resistances to kind of make up for this damage. And another thing which can really pack a punch when these are fighting together in groups is the Death Burst feature. When these creatures die, they explode in some sort of radiant light, which can potentially blind one of your player characters on a failed save. Being blinded, especially at low levels, we don't really have any way of coming around it, can be really, really devastating and really frustrating to deal with as a player. So if you're fighting 2, 3, or 4 of these, be prepared for your group to probably have some blinded characters. And if all that wasn't enough, it has an additional feature which it can be only used just once per day, but Captivating Artistry can potentially charm one of your player characters, which again can pack on a lot of hurt, potentially stopping them from even attacking. So again, when these creatures are combined into groups, this can really, really put a lot of pain on your party. So definitely things to be aware of if you're running multiple of these. All right, so next up on the list is the Challenge Rating 2 Lorehold Apprentice, which at first glance, when you take a look at its armor class of 12, boosted to 15 through the use of Mage armor and its reasonable-ish 33 hit points, it doesn't really look like it's going to be packing that much of a punch, but those numbers don't really tell the whole story once you start looking at its actions that are available to it and the features as well. While its Scroll Bash action attack does not have a multi-attack available to it, it is hitting reasonably hard at an average damage of 16 if you combine the two with 1d10 plus 2 bludgeoning damage, but it's that 2d8 thunder damage that can be consistently done every turn that really kind of makes you think, because let's be honest, most people probably forgot that thunder damage even existed. No one's got resistance to it in reality. Next up is its Reduced to Memory feature. And I know, this is on a recharge of 6, but that's still a roughly 18% chance of getting it back every round. And if there's a couple of these, again, fighting in groups, or if there's even just multiple enemies, regardless of whether it's multiple Lorehold Apprentices or not, this might be coming back more often than not. So you definitely got to be worried about the possibility of 6d10 thunder damage hitting you at any given point. And again, remembering this is a Challenge Rating 2 and nobody has resistance to thunder damage. So definitely something to watch out for. And lastly, as a reaction, twice per day, the Lorehold Apprentice can use a feature called Learn from the Past, which allows any creature that failed an attack roll within 60 feet of it to re-roll that attack. And yes, they must use the new dice, but this is effectively a after the fact advantage. It's kind of like a mediocre Silvery Barbs, which is already pretty overpowered to begin with. So honestly, again, fighting in groups, whether it's multiple of these or just multiple enemies in general, these can really, really provide a significant amount of support that can really put a lot of hurt on. All right, so third, we are looking at the challenge rating for Auric Recruiter, which has a pretty reasonable armor class of 16 and 55 hit points, which is okay, but especially when you combine that with the fact that it has immunities to psychic damage, and it also is immune to both the frightened and the charmed condition, and has quite solid bonuses to its intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. This can really, really ruin your party's day. But beyond all of that, what really cuts deep, if you see what I did there, is its Psychic Knife attack, which on a reasonable +6 to hit, dealing an average damage of 21 psychic damage is really, really gonna ruin your day. And oh yeah, it can do it twice per turn. Looking at hitting with an average damage of 42 psychic damage per round, it can be pretty devastating. But on top of that, it can actually, if it so chooses, replace one of its Psychic Knife attacks with one of its, albeit relatively mediocre spells, but hitting a player character with a relatively well-timed Charm Person or Suggestion can be pretty effective as well. All right, next up, still staying in the challenge rating 4 territory, we are looking at the Witherbloom Pledge Mage, which has a reasonable AC of 15 when it's combined with its vociferous form, which is something we're going to get to in just a second, and a pretty strong 66 hit points. But on top of all that, immunities to the poison condition and resistance to psychic damage, as well as having really, really strong bonuses to its Constitution and Wisdom saving throw modifiers, definitely make this enemy a pretty fierce combatant. So in addition to its pretty strong stat block that it already has, this creature also has the ability to regenerate hit points every single turn, as well as give an ally temporary hit points as well, which again, anytime these are in groups and working together can really, really compound the effectiveness of them, as well as the entire group of enemies that you're using against your party. So this is definitely something you want to be aware of. Next, moving on to its actions. Yes, its Briarvine does not have multi-attack, only having the ability to hit once per round, but still dealing with an average of 26 damage, 18 of which is poison, can hit pretty damn hard. And on top of that, having the ability to pull an enemy closer that is 10 feet away can be pretty devastating to some spellcasters in your group, which might be getting a little bit too close for comfort. Lastly, as a bonus action, we get to the big one. It has the ability to use a feature called Vociferous Form, which on top of giving a bonus to its armor class, bringing this creature up to a total of 15, also gives it the ability to have advantage on attack rolls to any creature that is missing hit points. So that average damage of 26 is looking a lot more dangerous right now, a lot more scary when you factor in the fact that you might be getting critical hit a lot more than you might expect. Number 5 on our list is the challenge rating 7 Quandricks Professor of Substance, and this guy really, really packs a punch. Again, having an armor class of 15, which is boosted there through the use of Mage armor, it does have a pretty reasonable 104 hit points, and it does have resistance to force damage, which doesn't really happen all that much from the player character side, but hey, you never know. It also does have some pretty amazing saving throw bonuses to all the big ones, really. Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. Obviously, it's lacking in the Dexterity saving throw, but this is it covers a pretty wide range of the common saving throws. Moving on to its actions, its Spatial Blade, which does have the multi-attack ability, which despite some of the other professors having the ability to hit 3 times, the Professor of Substance can only hit twice. However, that's totally okay when you factor in that it is doing an average damage of 44 force damage per round, provided that it has used its Expand Time Dilation ability, which, to be honest, it probably has. And in addition to all of that, it can also push that enemy creature up to 10 feet away, which can be really, really helpful for it getting away in potentially dangerous or dire situations if the party's fighter or barbarian is really charging in on it. And this attack also has a range of up to 120 feet. So this will hit just about anything, and it's pretty savage. This is one of the few creatures we've looked at so far that actually does have a pretty reasonable spell list. In particular, I'm thinking about Dimension Door and Polymorph. These can both be incredibly useful at both getting out of potentially dangerous situations, but also really, really annoying your party with a solid hit on Polymorph. And finally, twice per day as a reaction, it can use a feature called Avoidant Translation, which is kind of like the parry ability that a lot of Drow and a lot of fighting characters have, except that it's a lot better because it not only does it add 3 to their AC, potentially turning a hit into a miss, but it also allows the Quandricks Professor of Substance to teleport up to 60 feet away, which would not provoke opportunity attacks either because it's not actually consuming any of its movement to do so. All right, so that about covers it. I hope if you are planning on running some of these creatures, this has given you a little bit of an insight on some of the red flags that you really want to be looking out for when you're evaluating stat blocks. Otherwise, if you have not already, like I mentioned earlier, please do enter in the giveaway. I'm giving away some free content on dndbeyond.com, so enter for your chance to win on that. If you like this video and you like the type of content that I create, please do leave me a sub. It's totally free. It really, really supports me and helps me in a significant way. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what some of your favorite creatures or enemies at Strixhaven or any other D&D adventure book are. But otherwise, until the next one, take care.